The Senate chamber froze in an uneasy silence. Senator Rand Paul leaned back, his trademark grin curling as he fired the jab. Maybe Representative Crockett should think about going back to law school. The words hung heavy, but Crockett didn't flinch. Instead, she slowly unlocked her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. One tap, and the entire balance of the hearing would change. "Senator Paul," she said evenly, voice steady as steel. "Before we go any further, everyone in this room needs to hear something." The next moments would ignite social media like wildfire. The recording in her hand would not just defend her education, it would shred Paul's credibility, dragging a scandal from the shadows into the light. Paul smirked, still smug, his staff already whispering and preparing tweets of victory. He had always branded himself a contrarian, a maverick outsider. But Crockett knew the truth. He came from privilege, shielded and insulated his entire life. The hearing itself had begun as a simple review of Crockett's new education bill, free community college, expanded funding for HBCUs. Paul opposed it viciously, sneering at it as socialist handouts. But this was about more than policy. 2 weeks earlier, Crockett had humiliated Paul in a viral floor speech, tearing apart his arguments against student loan forgiveness. She'd called him economically illiterate. The clip had racked up millions of views. Paul took it personally. He retaliated on Fox News, mocking Crockett's background, suggesting she was nothing more than a diversity hire. His comments sparked a storm of racist and sexist vitriol online. But Crockett had been waiting for this confrontation. She came armed. C-SPAN's cameras rolled. Millions of eyes were glued. The showdown was about to begin. Paul leaned forward, glasses in hand, pretending at authority. "Representative Crockett, I have to question your qualifications to speak on constitutional law or economics." Crockett sat tall. "I'm more than happy to discuss my qualifications, Senator." Paul's smile widened. "You went to Rhodes College, then the University of Houston for law school. Not exactly Harvard or Yale, is it?" Gasps fluttered through the chamber. Even Republican aides shifted in their seats. "I'm proud of my education, Senator," Crockett replied calmly. "Not everyone has the luxury of legacy admissions." Paul jabbed back. "Maybe you should defer to those of us with real credentials. I, for example, went to Duke Medical School." "Because your father opened doors for you," Crockett snapped. "No," Paul sneered. "Because I studied where real standards existed. Unlike your state schools, drowning in critical race theory instead of real economics." The gallery erupted. Sanders slammed his gavel. "Order!" But Paul pressed harder. "And isn't it true you couldn't even pass the bar exam on your first attempt?" "That's a lie." Crockett's voice rang clear. "I passed on my very first try." Paul smirked, pulling a folder. "I have reports that suggest otherwise. Maybe your memory is as shaky as your credentials." Crockett leaned forward, opening her briefcase. "Well, since we're bringing up memory and credentials, Senator, I think the public should hear something too." Paul laughed, dripping with mockery. "What did you bring your community college diploma to show off?" Crockett connected her phone to the hearing room audio system. "No, Senator. This is a recording from a fundraiser you hosted 3 weeks ago." Paul's grin faltered. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, but I would, and I will." She pressed play. Paul's own voice filled the chamber, crisp, undeniable. "The problem with Congress today is we're letting anyone in. Look at Jasmine Crockett, some nobody from a no-name law school in Texas. Her father was a truck driver, her mother scrubbed toilets, and now she thinks she belongs here deciding economic policy? It's laughable." The room went still. These diversity hires are sinking Congress. She probably got in through affirmative action. Law school honors? Please. Those schools hand out honors like Halloween candy. Reporters typed frantically. Cameras zoomed in on Paul, his face drained of color. Then came the kill shot. My Duke medical degree? My father made one call. I was failing biochemistry. Then he donates to the school, and suddenly I'm sailing through. That's how the real world works. Not what you know, who you know. People like Crockett think their grades matter. Connections matter more. Crockett paused the recording. The chamber exploded. Female senators stood in fury. Staffers whispered in panic. Paul sat rigid, his jaw tight, eyes darting. There's more, Crockett said calmly. Shall I continue? Paul bolted upright, knocking over his glass of water. This is illegal. Private conversations. As I said, Senator, Crockett cut him off. Virginia is a one-party consent state. The person who recorded this was legally allowed. Sanders slammed the gavel. Senator Paul, sit down. Representative Crockett, proceed. She pressed play again. Paul's voice once more. You know the problem? Too many women think they can do a man's job. Crockett, AOC, Warren. They're emotional, not logical. They think with feelings instead of brains. That shot through the room. Senators from both parties looked livid. Crockett stopped the recording and produced documents. And here, she said, lifting a transcript, are your actual academic records from Duke, obtained through public records. They show you were placed on academic probation, that you failed anatomy, pharmacology, and biochemistry. Paul's face went ghostly pale. Those are private. As a public official, your qualifications are public business, Crockett replied coldly. She held up another letter. This from the dean, thanking your father, Congressman Ron Paul, for his generous donation and noting confidence that your academic difficulties would be resolved. The room thundered with murmurs. And here, your transcript, from failing grades to straight B's overnight. Remarkable improvement, wouldn't you say? Paul stammered, unable to form words. Crockett then placed her own documents on the table. For the record, Senator, since you questioned me, I graduated summa cum laude from Rhodes College, GPA 3.98, scored in the 95th percentile on the LSAT, magna cum laude from the University of Houston Law Center, passed the Texas bar on my first attempt with one of the highest scores that year. She looked him dead in the eye. Everything I have, I earned. Can you say the same? The contrast was devastating. Crockett, merit, grit, proof. Paul, privilege, corruption, exposure. The hearing room was chaos, but one truth was clear. This moment would follow Rand Paul forever.